What is capitalism? Hi there, it's Luigi, and welcome to Catapult Capitalism, your guide in making smart financial moves for your future. If you enjoy watching our videos, feel free to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get updated whenever we upload a new video. In today's video, we are going to discuss what capitalism is and how it affects us. So if you dig these kinds of videos, then keep on watching. Capitalism is described as an economic system in which private firms dominate a country's commerce, industry, and profits rather than the people whose time and effort power those enterprises. Although the United States and many other countries across the world are capitalists, capitalism is not the only economic system accessible. Younger Americans in particular are rejecting long-held beliefs about how our economy works. With the climate crisis threatening our collective future, millions living in poverty, the economic and social shocks of the coronavirus pandemic, and unemployment wave still reverberating, and the richest 1% accumulating ever greater wealth, Gen Z and millennials say they have grown increasingly disillusioned with capitalism. The formation of mega-corporations controlled by a group of private persons and organizations is one manifestation of capitalism. Minimal government intrusion and preservation of private property rights have allowed for the formation of massive corporations. Capitalism has resulted in thriving stock markets where equities are freely exchanged all around the world. As a result of this, capitalism has resulted in a massive increase in global wealth. Where did capitalism come from? The beginnings of capitalism are multifaceted, dating back to the 16th century when British power structures essentially crumbled during the Black Death, a terrible disease that killed up to 60% of Europe's whole population. A newly developed class of merchants began to deal with foreign nations, and this growing demand for exports harmed local economies while dictating the total production and price of products. It also paved the way for the rise of colonialism, slavery, and imperialism. The end of feudalism, a hierarchical system that kept impoverished people linked to their owner's land, which they cultivated in return for a place to live and military protection, also left rural British peasants without houses and jobs, driving them away from the countryside and into cities. In order to live, these former agricultural workers were forced to sell their lands, while the state collaborated with new capitalists to create a minimum wage and crack down on beggars. England had become an industrial nation by the 18th century, and the advent of the Industrial Revolution saw an explosion of industry sweep the island. It was in those smoky factories and combustible textile mills that our contemporary concept of capitalism first took root. In 1776, Scottish economist Adam Smith wrote An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations, which is widely considered the foundation of contemporary capitalism. Despite the fact that some of his particular beliefs about value and labor differ from those of current economists, Smith is sometimes referred to as the father of capitalism. What does it mean to be a capitalist? Individual capitalists are often affluent individuals who have a substantial quantity of capital, either money or other financial assets, invested in the company and who benefit from the capitalist system by increasing earnings and so adding to their wealth. A capitalist society is governed by the free market, which is an economic system in which businesses and private enterprises compete for both pricing and output, and places a strong emphasis on private property, economic growth, freedom of choice, and little government involvement. Those on the right of the political spectrum are generally pro-capitalist, while those on the left are anti-capitalist. How does capitalism impact people? The influence of capitalism on your life is determined by whether you are a worker or a boss. Capitalism may make sense for someone who runs a business and employs others. The more profits your firm makes, the more resources you have to share with your employees, which supposedly raises everyone's standard of life. Everything is founded on the supply and demand premise, and with capitalism, consumption reigns supreme. The problem is that many capitalist employers aren't excellent at sharing the wealth, which is why one of capitalism's primary criticisms is that it is a significant source of social and economic inequality. Capitalism holds that greed is good, which its adherents argue is a good thing, since greed generates profits, and profits drive innovation and product creation, which means more options for those who can afford them. Opponents argue that capitalism is exploitative by nature, resulting in a cruelly divided society that tramples the working classes in favor of fattening the rich's pockets. For example, the Occupy Wall Street movement began as an anti-capitalist protest against the 1%, the richest of the affluent, and wondered why they were permitted to grow fat and happy while 20% of American children lived in poverty. Why do people support capitalism? Supporters of capitalism believe in numerous crucial points. Economic liberty leads to political liberty, while a state-owned means of production can lead to federal overreach and tyranny. They believe that it is the only rational way to organize a society and that alternatives like socialism, communism, or anarchism are bound to fail. When confronted about capitalism's destructive influence on the environment and our diminishing natural resources, many argue that as they dwindle, those resources will become more valuable and capable of generating more capital. They also think that corporate rivalry benefits consumers by making items more inexpensive, and that capitalism's dog-eat-dog environment motivates people to strive harder to attain their goals. They are prone to disregard anti-capitalist concerns about inequality and oppression by claiming that affluent people are wealthy because they are more productive than poor people. Why are people against capitalism? Capitalism, according to anti-capitalists, is an inhumane, anti-democratic, unsustainable, and fundamentally exploitative system that must be abolished. They perceive it as intrinsically opposed to democracy due to the way capitalist employers wield control over people in the workplace and the fact that the more wealth one accumulates, the more authority one has. In his book, Capital, Volume 1, A Critical Analysis of Capitalist Production, German communist philosopher and economist Karl Marx, perhaps the most famous opponent of capitalism in history, who ironically helped popularize the term, wrote, "Just as man is governed in religion by products of his own brain, so in capitalist production he is governed by the products of his own hand." The central anti-capitalist argument is that poor in the midst of wealth is the characteristic of capitalism. As the imminent threat of automation and the degradation of public health care puts further strain on the working classes, critics fear that capitalism's obsession with profit over all else implies that people who sell their labor will be worked to death. What is the distinction between capitalism and socialism? Capitalism and socialism are widely seen as diametrically opposed systems, and arguments of one are frequently framed in contrast to the other. The modern notion of socialism has origins in Greek philosopher Plato, but evolved as a popular political ideology in the early 19th century among German radicals like Karl Marx. Socialism can take various shapes, but at its foundation, it is an economic system in which the entire society, not just bosses or private enterprises, control the means of production equally. It assumes that humans are naturally cooperative rather than competitive. The goal of socialism is to create an egalitarian society run by democratically elected representatives for the benefit of all within a set of collectively predetermined parameters. Capitalists oppose socialism because they feel it hinders economic progress, promotes worker idleness, and can impede individual liberties and free speech. Profits are more essential in a capitalist country than anything else. In a socialist country, the public is considered more important, and social welfare is a key concern. Modern capitalist countries include the United States, the United Kingdom, and Germany. In the last few decades, the world as a whole was moved toward capitalism. Capitalism is the most important part of our current global economic system, where people own the means of production and the government doesn't get involved much. People have more freedom and are more likely to work hard because of capitalism. On the other hand, it has a number of problems. A lot of critics say that this system doesn't have a heart. But if you take a balanced approach, you can solve the problems of capitalism. Are you more of a capitalist mindset person, or do you lean more towards the socialism side? Let us know in the comments section below. And that's it for this video. If you enjoy watching our videos, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Thank you for tuning in to Catapult Capitalism, and we'll see you later.